Apple finally did it. It's updated the MacBook Air. When Steve Jobs first introduced the MacBook Air back in 2008 by pulling it out of an envelope, it ushered in the era of light and thin laptops. 10 years later, though, it was the odd duck among Apple's laptops and in dire need of a refresh. Well, now we've got it. The new MacBook Air is a complete redesign. It's still a wedge shape, but it's thinner with a much smaller footprint. It ditches all the old ports for just 2 USB-C connectors, and it finally gets a Retina screen. All right, let's talk about the wedge. It's still a super friendly design that's easily carried around, which is why so many laptops these days have it. It's just 3/5 of an inch at its thickest point, or about 10% thinner than the old MacBook Air. All of the edges have just the right amount of softness. Nothing feels too sharp, but you always feel like you've got a good grip on it no matter how you hold it. However, because the lower half of the laptop is so light, it's sometimes a little harder to open than, say, a MacBook Pro. Most of the time, you'll need to use 2 hands to make sure the keyboard stays put. This is also the first MacBook to come in finishes other than silver. Apple offers it in sleek space gray and also gold. But it's not the old yellow shiny gold of the skinny MacBook. Let's call it coral gold. Our review unit was space gray though, and it's pretty spiffy looking. Until now, Apple seemed to be reserving space gray for its higher-end Pro machines like the MacBook Pro and the iMac Pro, but with the Air, that unofficial policy appears to have gone out the window. Space gray for everybody! If you frequently connect your Mac to other gear, you may not like Apple's move to ditch all the old ports for USB-C. But the port is much more versatile, and having 2 of them is a lot better than just one, as every owner of the skinny MacBook knows. At least now you can stay connected to power and connect something else without resorting to a dongle. Oh, the headphone jack is still here, so there's that. The new MacBook Air has the same 3rd generation butterfly switch keyboard that's on the current MacBook Pros. It feels nice, although it can still be pretty loud at times. I feel like Apple's more or less perfected the butterfly keyboard with this design, although if you're just now making the transition, you'll probably miss those chiclet keys for the first little while. Up in the top right of the keyboard is the power button and Touch ID sensor, which reads your fingerprints. The MacBook Pros have had this feature for a while, and it works really well. It's a little weird that Apple's iPhones have moved toward Face ID and its laptops are all about Touch ID, but the sensor is nice and fast on the MacBook Air, so I can't complain too much. The reason it works so quickly is because the new MacBook Air also includes Apple's T2 chip. The T2 is separate from the main processor, and its whole job is taking care of secondary functions so the CPU doesn't get bogged down. It also handles audio processing, security features like encryption, and Hey Siri. Hey Siri does exactly what you think. It lets you activate Siri just by talking, even when the MacBook Air's screen is off. Okay, let's talk about the new display, which is beautiful. It has 2560 by 1600 resolution, which is a big step up from the old Air, which maxed out at 1440 by 900. But compared to other laptops today, including Apple's, it's just okay. The color gamut's a bit more limited than the MacBook Pro, understandable since you're probably not doing serious photo editing on the Air. However, it's also not as bright, maxing out at 300 nits to the Pro's 500. You will notice that if you like to use your laptop outside in bright sunlight. The new trackpad is a big upgrade. It's significantly bigger for starters, but it's also a Force Touch trackpad, meaning it can tell when you're pushing harder, letting you do things like automatically look up words when you click hard on them. If you've never used Force Touch, you're probably not alone, and it's not exactly a killer feature. However, it does mean that the trackpad isn't actually a proper button. Instead, the pad vibrates in a sophisticated way to make it feel like you've clicked. Trust us, this is a good thing. Not only does it give your MacBook one less way to break down, but you can also go into settings and make the click even quieter than it already is. What about performance? The MacBook Air packs an 8th generation Intel Core i5 processor. It's rated at 1.6 GHz speed with turbo boost speeds up to 2.9 GHz. You can go higher, of course, but this is what you get in the entry-level model. In terms of real-world performance, the Air is good, not great. That said, as a work machine, the MacBook Air is passable. But if you regularly edit photos or videos, it's probably best to spend the extra money and opt for the MacBook Pro instead. Not that you're saving a ton by buying a MacBook Air. The old model started at $999 and the new one is $1199, a $200 jump. And for Apple laptops, this price point is more confusing than ever. The skinny MacBook starts at $1099 and the MacBook Pro without the Touch Bar starts at $1299. So who should buy the new MacBook Air? Well, anyone who would rather have more storage and more extras, like the T2 chip and the 3rd gen Butterfly keyboard, instead of slightly better performance, which you'll get with the Pro. The new MacBook Air is sweet, no question. But if you're not married to Apple, there's a Surface laptop over in the Microsoft aisle that's just as nice and costs $200 less. Just saying.